Good evening, everybody. This is Teams Adoption Strategy. Thank you all for being here and spending your Wednesday evening with me. I appreciate it, and thank you for attending this event. It's been really great. Some great sessions are going on, so make sure you check out the YouTube channel later for all of the recordings if you missed anything. Lots of good sessions going on. All right, be sure to join us at the collaboration conference in Vegas on March 23rd through the 25th next year. Really looking forward to it after cancellations this year. Thank you to our sponsors. Without them, this would not be possible. So thank you to all the sponsors and everybody putting on this event, as well as all the speakers volunteering their time. So thank you to everybody. A little bit about me. I'm Melissa Hamilton. I am the Technical Director for OnPoint Tech Solutions. We are out of Arizona. And I have been in SharePoint and Office 365 for over 18 years. I was picked out from my general when I was in the Air Force. We had a general that was really into anything technology related. And he came home from a conference one day and said that he heard about this new SharePoint thing that he wanted to get in on, and had a 1989 ACT server that they let me build it on. I had the shiniest shoes, shiniest boots, and the sharpest uniform. So I got picked for the general's pet project and got to take that 1989 server and see what I could do with it. And I have taken that forward with me. I have constantly been trying to make SharePoint do something it shouldn't be doing, and I love it. So I'm still in it, and I really enjoy the platform. And today, I spend a lot of my time helping my clients with their adoption strategies. So how do we make sure that our users are happy when we roll out a new application? How do we make sure that it gets used? Businesses spend thousands and thousands of dollars every year on applications that don't get used or don't get used to the fullest extent, or only get used by a small sector of people because training isn't done. User adoption hasn't been a priority. The executive sponsorship hasn't even been considered. And what you don't want is for Office 365, for this platform to become a part of that. So we're really going to focus on Teams today, but you can think about this across the board for any of the apps. I also spend a lot of time in solutions development. So I really like to sit down with a client and say, you know, what can I help you with? What's your biggest pain point? And I make a use case out of it. What are you struggling with? And then we take that and we figure out how to fix that process from end to end. And, you know, building out SharePoint lists or Power Apps or building a team and restructuring processes. We do that from end to end and help get your organization moving forward at an efficient pace. I believe that Office 365 is not just an application or a platform of applications. I believe that businesses should adopt it as a culture. I think that the way you drive your business and the way you move forward is from the top down, embracing the technology that you have available to you. And in this case, it's Office 365, and it's so powerful. So I believe that if you empower your users to just jump in and use it and make it their everyday life, their bread and butter, their just what we do, this is how we operate, then you will have a much more successful business operations. Okay, taking your first steps with Teams. Office 365 is cloud-based tools. Everybody here probably knows that. It provides us with collaboration and communication across many applications. And you can think of Teams as like your gateway to all of Office 365. So I like to call Teams a collaborative workspace. So think of it as kind of your entry point, your bridge. So this is where you get into everything else. When you're in Teams, you can connect to virtually anything that has a URL at least. So there are lots of apps that we can connect to it. We can use tabs. We can add tabs into any of our cloud-based apps. So let's think bigger, like Jira. You know, we can have that inside of Teams. So when I sit down and I have a business, I have a client that wants to roll Teams out, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a list of the different kinds of users that business has. And then I'm going to sit down with those groups of users and find out, how do you operate today? What applications do you use? Where do you spend your time? What are you going back and forth between doing, and where are you wasting time? And then we take those use cases and we build out a Teams environment that works for their workspace, works for what they do in their day-to-day. We build teams out that are functional for the people within the teams, and we provide tabs that help give them the flexibility and the functionality that they need right within Teams, instead of them going back and forth switching between apps. That context switching between apps, every time you have an employee that has to switch from let's say Outlook to a web browser and back and forth to keep track of things, and maybe Outlook, a web browser, PowerPoint, maybe you're adding multiple, you know, you're adding more and more apps in there. I can think of lots of use cases of that. And every time that happens, every time your user has to context change, you are losing 7 to 15 seconds. Now that might seem like not a big deal, but think of how many times a day your users are switching back and forth. Think of how much efficiency you're losing versus having your users in one app and all they have to do is do their work. It's a big time saver, and it's a big difference in the organization. The other thing that you need to do is really focus on executive sponsorship. I'm going to take a few minutes to really focus on this because this is key. This is so important. Executive sponsorship creates credibility for the entire transformation, for the entire adoption, for everything that you're doing. If you have IT coming to you saying, oh, hey, we have a new application that you have to start using, and so, you know, we're going to push it to your computer and now you need to start using it, and this is the way we do things. That is one way to handle it, but users are like, oh, another app, what's this? Why do I need another app to communicate and to share things? Like, I already do that. I just want to do it in email. I just want to FedEx file, take these FedEx papers and go over to the other office building and take it. The users don't want to be bothered with anything new. They don't want to be, because let's face it, as IT, we've had a history of making life more difficult sometimes. So our users don't want our ideas. However, if you have executive sponsorship, if you have the CEO, you have the CIO getting on and doing an announcement or putting a little 30-second video message on the homepage of your intranet saying we have this new great thing happening and look at how it's gonna benefit you. This is how I'm using it, and this is the way I want you to use it. And if you start to create that buzz and you start to have leadership start to talk about this great tool that's saving them so much time and is making life easier for them, then your users are naturally going to start to adopt it and start to change their perspective on it. And they're going to want to check it out because it's trickling from the top down. Changes require up-to-date professionals. So it's really, really important that training is a part of your path. It's important that you have people that know as the applications are changing and keep up to date with new features and new ways to do things, because these applications, teams included, are updating weekly. They're releasing new things all the time. So it is really, really important that somebody is staying in the loop on those things, because you don't want to miss the newest, greatest feature. You don't want to miss something that your business, that your organization needs, that just is on the roadmap that hasn't been released yet. So somebody needs to be paying attention and keeping up to date on that. So if you're in this session, I'm going to throw a little party for you here, because that means that you're likely a champion. So what that means is that I really, really encourage during your adoption process that you identify people that are technically savvy, but not part of IT, and that can become a champion. We used to call them power users or super users, right? They're empowered. They are empowered. They have a higher level of knowledge. They've been training on it longer. They understand the ins and outs of teams. And those are the people that are going to be your go-to people after rollout. So what you kind of have a train the trainer kind of situation. So what this is doing is this is taking that interaction out of IT hands, and you're having colleagues work with colleagues. So each group might have a champion, or each division might have a champion, and you break it up so that it's people that they are closer with, people that they'll go to and talk to. And here's the deal. Here's where you're gonna win. When you have a champion that knows the tool, that knows how to get the answer if they need it, that will act as that liaison, you're gonna have users less frustrated, because they are more likely to go to a colleague to ask for help than they are to IT. They're more likely to hey, I wasn't sure was I supposed to tag somebody in that conversation? Susie, can you help me? Oh yeah, you just do it this way, versus you need to put in a help desk ticket, and then we have 48 hours to respond to you, and we're probably going to just shoot you an email that you might not understand, and then you're going to shoot us back an email telling us that you don't understand, and then we'll get to you when we do. It's a whole different feel, right? And I know we're not all that way in the IT organization, but you know that that's the way our users look at us. No matter how efficient we are, no matter how good we are at our jobs, our users have a bad taste in their mouth. We have a bad reputation for making things more difficult sometimes. So let's take this part and empower their colleagues and empower them to be champions and to grow this and get that camaraderie, and because if your users are happier, if your users are getting the answers that they want, who cares where those answers are coming from, as long as they're the correct answers. And that's why it's important to train those champions correctly and efficiently and effectively. So how do we do this, Mel? How do we support our business? How do we educate our business? How do we move forward? So this is the slide that you want to screenshot. This is the slide that you really, really want to focus on. So I am going to tell you a little bit of a story to kind of explain this to you. So last fall, I got a Jeep. And this is my first Jeep, and her name is Jilly, and she's my best friend. And When I got my Jeep, I was super excited. Oh, I get to go do, I get to go on these trails, and I get to go rock climbing, I get to do off-roading, I get to do all these things. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was excited about it, but I didn't really know, I still don't know, all the ins and outs. Like, I break things on my Jeep sometimes, and I have no idea what it is. And the thing is I was uneducated. So when I get ready to go out on a trail, I do a trail study. I have to make sure that I know where that trail is going, where it starts, where it ends, how long it is. I have to make sure I have enough gas to get me where I'm going. I need to make sure that I've got, you know, that my lift will cover what the obstacles that I'm meeting, that I know how to drive this trail. Is it too technical for me based on ratings? I have to do all this research to figure it out, because you can't just show up at a trail and start driving, because I found out the hard way you might not know what that trail entails. See, I took a trip to Moab, which is, if you don't know, Moab is like the off-roaders kingdom, right? Like, that's like where everybody like wants to go. And I did my trail study. And when I did my trail study, I saw that there was this trail, and it was easy. And then there was this other trail that was also easy, and it was in this other place, and it was some sightseeing. So I was going to go do that trail and then leave that trail and then go to the second trail. Well, while I was on the first trail, I saw a sign out in the middle of the desert on this trail that said the name of the second trail, and it said, go this way. Well, what I didn't know, because I didn't study well enough, what I didn't know is I was now entering that trail from the back end of the trail. So the part that I thought was rated easy was only rated easy to a certain point. I was now entering this trail where it was rated hard, and I did not know that until I got so far in that I couldn't turn around. How many times does that happen to us in business? I can tell you in SharePoint 2007 with Moss, that happened a lot. A lot of businesses rolled out Moss. Oh, we can have site owners now, and we can let the users have their own sites, and they can build out whatever they want. And no planning was done. There wasn't, the capacity planning wasn't done. There wasn't governance. There wasn't a way to keep track of users being added here or there, and it became a big mess. Teams is exactly the same way. When you create a team, you are getting a SharePoint, you're getting an Office 365 group, like you're getting a whole bunch of things with it. If you don't do all of the planning up front, then you are going to create a big mess. You're going to end up on a hard trail with no way to back out. Okay, so make sure you do your planning up front. Along with the planning, you want to do communications, branding, banners, flyers, countdowns. So what I mean by that is, this is where we create buzz. This is where we create excitement. When I'm doing a trail study, I'm looking up photos, and I'm like looking at these obstacles, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm gonna climb that rock, but I'm super excited about it, and hopefully a winch can get me out if I need it. I'm creating buzz for myself. I'm getting excited because I can see what I'm about to go do. The same thing is for your users. If your users can see what they're going to get out of Teams, if they can start to see how it's going to help them, if they can start to see what will work for them and how things are going to benefit them, then they're going to get excited. It's going to create the buzz. So you need to start creating buzz. Communications, so send out emails with branding, so everything, everything kind of looks the same, and send that way. There's this like whole look and feel about what you're doing. Start putting banners when we're back in the workplace. This is a little bit different right now, but you can put banners in bathrooms and hallways and elevators, flyers, countdowns. the countdowns are fantastic because you can talk about like, oh, you know, a countdown to this is when this team is coming on board and now this team's coming on board, or just create that buzz, get everybody excited. Oh, bless me. Okay, so creating that buzz. The other thing about creating buzz is you can do buzz days. I don't know if you've ever done these before, but buzz days are really beneficial because it's kind of like a sneak peek, or like a tips and tricks kind of thing, and you can just the idea is literally to create buzz. So you are showing them firsthand, doing a live demo of how they're going to do things or what might be beneficial to them, and getting them excited. I've done these as even like drop-in clinics, which we're going to talk about also in a minute. But you can do buzz days and drop-in clinics, both in both stages. So you can create training, but you can also just create excitement. During this planning stage, this is also where you're really going to focus on executive sponsorship, and that's going to tie into your branding and your flyers and all of that. During the plan phase, the next thing you want to do is this is where you're going to sit down for your use cases, and you're going to line out exactly what each user looks like, what it looks like when they sit down at their laptop, and what are they trying to do, what apps are they going to, what permissions do they need, build out each of those use cases. You have to do this up front because that's the only way you're going to get the governance and everything and be able to roll everything out efficiently. So you do this now. Figure out each and every use case. When you are training your champions, there are tons and tons of resources out there for you. If you just Google your first, I think it's like Microsoft Teams, your first team. If you Google that, there is, through the Microsoft website, there is a whole training series on what to do to get started with your first team, and you can use that as your basis to train your champions. Out there, there is non-stop training, so you can find all of that for free. All you have to do is go search the Microsoft website to get all of it. Make sure that when you're creating your use cases, that you're sitting down and you're thinking from the user's perspective, what's in it for me? None of us like to do anything unless there's a benefit to it. Why am I going to learn a new application? Why am I going to learn a new way of doing things? Why am I going to change what I'm comfortable with if I'm not going to benefit from it? If it doesn't do anything and all it does is make things more difficult and I have to learn something new, why would I do it? So you really want to come from a place of telling them why they want to do it. What is in it for them? Why is this going to make their life easier? And you're going to be surprised at the way your users start to shift, because just like a toddler, if you tell them that they're going to get something out of it, they're going to be really, really excited about that. So, I mean, I'm not saying all users are toddlers, but come on, we know. So, keep focused on them. Make sure that you are providing them with real life examples of how things are going to be better. Okay, so now we're done planning. We've got the buzz. We've got everybody excited. We've done our trail study. We know where we're going. Now, the training. So this is where, when I'm in my Jeep, this is where I make sure I have the correct lift, right? So I have a lift. This is where I have to have bigger wheels. This is probably about 2 months ago now. I went on this trail and it was rated maybe a little bit more difficult than what I should have been on, but I was going with a group and, we had all the recovery stuff and I knew I'd be safe. So, why not? So I go out there and I am going over an obstacle that had some water in it. And while I'm up on this obstacle, my wheel slides down this big boulder. I slide right down the side of it. And my sidewall gets a 4.5-inch gash down the side of it. I'm out in the middle of the desert in Arizona with a flat tire in the middle of a river. Well, I mean, a river in the desert. Like, I might be being a little dramatic about that. A 4.5-inch gash in my sidewall. Well, what I learned that day as my NASCAR pit crew was coming over and quickly, like changing my wheels, what I learned is that the wheels that came on my Jeep, even though they're considered off-road tires, they are rated barely above the line for off-road, which means that they give you traction, but they don't have any reinforcement on their sidewalls. So as soon as my sidewall got a little bit of pressure on it, just sliced it. So I learned something. I trained on that, and I learned that I needed to get, well, I got bigger wheels, but I probably didn't need that. But I needed to get better quality wheels specific for the kind of rock climbing that I was doing. The other thing that we do when we're preparing to go out on a trail is we air down. We take the air out of our wheels to give us the traction and to give us everything that we need to be able to propel us across the rocks and to climb like we need to. With more surface area, we're going to get more traction. So these are all things that we do before we even get out there. So I am, you know, I've planned for my trail. I've researched it. Now I've driven out to the trailhead, and now I'm sitting there, and now I'm airing down my tires, and that takes time. I am training. I'm getting ready for the main event. This is where, in your adoption plan, this is where you are sending out your hint and tip emails, and I've got some downloads for you later for some teams, for a team's tip sheet. This is where you're doing, you know, you want to send out hints. Maybe you could do like a weekly hint or tip that comes out, or, you know, this is where your buzz days and your drop-in clinics. This is where you're actually going to train. This is not, hey, look at the cool things you can do. This is where you say, this is how you do these cool things. And this is where you want your champions doing lunch and learns. You want them doing brown bags. Whatever it looks like for your organization, you want to get really, really involved in training, and you want to hit them from all different angles. So you want your champions doing it. You want it to be organized. You want excitement and less organized. You want it in their emails. You want it kind of everywhere, and you want to be providing them with valuable content, valuable information. Okay, so then the last thing is to roll out. So now that I've done all my airing down, I got the wheels, I've done my trail study, I'm gonna go on this really awesome trail. We're gonna roll out, we're gonna wheel. So now we get to have the fun, right? Now we're rolling out teams. Now we're gonna provide on-demand video training. So I typically, through the training application that I use, I add in any LMS you can do this, but I add it to a tab in Teams. And so when they click on the tab, then they can go ahead and they can see, you know, they can see the training video right there within Teams. So on-demand video training, I provide that in the tabs. And then I make sure that the champions are available and leadership is available. And now you're going. So just because you roll out, that doesn't mean you're done. Your adoption is not done. This is where businesses fail. This is where adoption fails, because everybody thinks that, oh, we hit the finish line, we're done. You're not. You're not. You know what happens when I come off of a trail for, you know, I've been out there sometimes 6-8 hours, and I come off of a trail and I'm dirty, especially when the top's off and the doors are off. And I don't know if you know, but the desert has a lot of dust, and I am dirty and it's hot, I'm sweaty. But now that I'm coming out of the trail, I don't get to just leave. I'm not just done. I have to wheel my tires back up. I have to put the top back on the Jeep. I have to do all these things. You aren't done because you rolled out. You have to stick with your users, keep them educated, keep them trained, keep them engaged, keep doing brown bags, keep doing lunch and learns, keep doing buzz days, drop-in clinics, emails, hint and tip sheets. Don't stop that just because you've rolled out. It might evolve. It might start to look a little different because you've already adopted now, but you don't stop that. That's where you fail. Make sure you empower your users and make sure you give them a little bit, give them a little bit of space of like, okay, like what do you need to do? If you have a user that is frustrated, don't force them into, well, this is the application, so you just need to suck it up, buttercup, and figure it out. Don't do that. Don't do that. Instead say, okay, so what is your pain point and how can we make it better? What are you struggling with? Like, how did you do it before? And within teams, what's not working for you? And then you're gonna end up with this, again, with this whole new attitude and perspective to it. And if you have champions responding to colleagues that way, and then you have the champions coming to you, and then you figure out a way to incorporate that in their team's environment, like think of how happy they're gonna be. Your users might even bake you cookies. I'm just saying, I'll do anything for some chocolate chip cookies as long as they're soft and gooey. So don't leave them hanging. Do not just think that you've rolled out and we've succeeded. That is not the end of it. You have to keep your momentum. So I really want you to know that I've got your back here. This photo was actually, so this photo was while I was out on that trail and I realized that I was on this really hard part and it was far more difficult than what I ever thought I could do. But I was really scared and there were sheer drop-offs on both sides of me. And the only thing that I can tell you is when you roll into your team's adoption strategy, you are gonna feel like there are cliffs on both sides of you. You're gonna feel like you're just like flumping forward and you're really scared and you need to start engine braking and like, I don't know, I feel like we're going too fast and we started turning on all these teams and now we have 5,000 users all of a sudden and blah, and now there's meetings and channels and blah. It's gonna be really scary, but I've got your back. You're gonna start with your governance template. This one, if you go to this link here, the follow Mel, the bit.ly at follow Mel, this is a governance plan. Feel free to edit it, do it however you want. This is just one that I use as a general foundation to get started. Use this and make sure that you start with governance. You absolutely cannot skip that part. You can't do it because then you might look like me and if you don't plan for the trail correctly and there'll be sheer drop-offs and so you want to prepare. So start with your governance. Feel free to follow me on social media. I'm all over the place and I am pretty active out there and I'm always answering questions and messages. So you can reach me in any of the ways. So email, social media, whatever floats your boat, I am here for you, and I'm happy to help provide you with some guidance and answer questions about this. I am very passionate about adoption strategy and making sure you get it right the first time. So the problem is when you have adoption, when you have an adoption strategy that falls flat, then all of a sudden you have users that are like, ugh, SharePoint. I hate SharePoint. How many times have you heard that? I hate SharePoint. People think they hate SharePoint, but really what it wasn't rolled out correctly, or it wasn't structured properly, or it wasn't utilized properly. If people knew the power, if those people knew the power of SharePoint and it was spun to them in a different way, for example, I have personally had users that with Microsoft Teams, they don't even realize that SharePoint is under the hood, right? So they don't know that SharePoint's there, and they used to always be like, oh, SharePoint, ew, Well, now they're in Teams and they love it. This is so much better than SharePoint. I literally heard that at a customer call. Like, this is better than SharePoint. And I, you know, just kind of chuckled to myself because it is SharePoint. So the point is, you really need to make sure that you're getting your users in the right frame of mind, because if your users are happy, they're going to use it. If your users are happy, they're not going to find workarounds. They're gonna live in there. So you want to come out the gate with making sure you make your users happy. So if you start with that in mind, if you're starting with the idea of that's your end goal, is that your user is happy within the Teams environment, and then let go of everything else. It's not about what we need to do for this or what we need to do for that. Focus on what the user needs and then build everything else out from that. Okay, so some organizational takebacks here. So these are kind of your big hitters. So again, with the plan and implement governance and compliance, I know you guys are probably rolling your eyes at this point. Maybe it's a good thing I can't see your faces, because I'm really passionate about that. If you don't start with governance and you just let it start to spin out of control, it's not going to be the same experience for your users. I took my kids out. I was super excited about having my new Jeep, and I've got two boys, 14-year-old and 11-year-old. I was super excited. I'm like, let's go romping, right? Like, let's go four-wheeling. Just like a week after I had my Jeep, I had no clue what was going on. And so I took them out, and I just found this little dirt road, and I was like, oh, look, we get to, oh yeah, I drove over a big bump, right? I had no idea. And my kids were like, Mom, this is really lame. Like, this is what you got a Jeep for? Like, what are you doing this for, right? I didn't know. I didn't plan. I didn't prepare. I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. Now, 6 months later, I take them out. We went out for Mother's Day. We went out with my Jeep group, and we went on a difficult trail. And at the end of that day, my 14-year-old looked at me, and he's like, dang, Mom, you've really stepped up your game. So I got mad props because, got off the dirt roads. The difference is that at that point, I had fully planned, fully trained. I knew what I didn't know before. I figured all that stuff out. And that's what the governance template will help you do. It'll help you map that stuff out. It'll help you figure that out from the beginning, so your users won't be let down, and then they won't look at you like my 14-year-old looked at me that day. Okay, so let's just avoid that, because again, we're talking, users are very much like children. Okay, sometimes we just gotta pet their hair and make them feel better. All right, and if users are happy, we're happy. Okay. All right, so, and then the next thing, fully integrate your day-to-day operations. So back to those use cases. Make sure that every single thing that you can put within Teams via tabs, or you can change a process to build it into Teams, do that, because the less time you're context switching, the less times that you're going back and forth, the less times that your user has to leave the Teams application, the more efficient they're going to be. Make sure you provide support, education, and guidance. Do not stop doing that. Do not stop providing them with training. Don't stop the drop-in clinics. Don't stop the buzz days, the tip sheets, the email, the buzz, the leadership support. Don't stop any of that. Just because you rolled out does not mean you're finished. It means that it's time to evolve. And for your first tip sheet, I have a link here for you. Go ahead and you can grab that and download it, and print it and use it in your organizations. This has like some shortcuts and just different ways, little how-tos on how to do things. It's really, really helpful. So go ahead and grab that. All right, I'm going to check the questions. Will this session also be posted to the YouTube channel? Yes, it will. I believe so. I believe they're all going to be published to the YouTube channel. Okay, that's all I have for questions here. Do you guys have anything? Does anyone have any other questions? This is all of my contact information. Thank you so much for spending time with me this evening. I know there's lots of things that you could be doing and a ton of other sessions you could be joining. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with me. Please follow my blog, Sharenanigans. I'm constantly, publishing different things that I'm finding or doing with my clients and just trying to get the information out there. So don't ever hesitate to reach out through the blog or via email. I am always here to answer any questions. Like I said, I'm passionate about user adoption and just wanna help as much as I can. So. With that, if anyone has any questions, I'll hang around. Otherwise, thank you. Oh, all right, we got some questions here. Would you recommend buying a Jeep and experience some trails before going into Microsoft Teams adoption? Absolutely. I would recommend anything that brings your stress level down before Teams adoption because it might be quite the undertaking. But let's be honest, I just recommend buying a Jeep, period. All right, the next question. You mentioned having someone watching all the upcoming features. How do you manage notifying users of those rollouts? So there is actually through the admin center, you can, in the admin center there, it tells you of all the new features, or you can go out to Microsoft's website and find it out there as well. And they'll keep you posted of all of the features every week that they get released. And add the links here. Cannot see the last slide. Thank you. All right, I will grab the link for you. There's the link for the tip sheet.
So what would be cool is
which link are you looking for, Melissa?
How we're producing.
Oh no, they were asking me for a link. I was providing a link.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh no, you're good. Thank you. How do you handle bosses who just don't get Teams and will not use it themselves, even though a migration is forthcoming? Okay, so this is where the executive sponsorship is key, and we talked a little bit about it, but I really want to emphasize that you have to have somebody at the top. You have to have an executive sponsor to champion this for you. So if you have some managers or bosses that aren't on board with the Teams adoption, then you need to find somebody else that is. You have to have somebody that is singing your praises and singing about this application. So you need to find a way to get them on board. go around them. I've totally done that. If you've got four people in leadership and 2 people aren't on board, get the rest of them on board. And because executive sponsorship, if people are negative up here, it's gonna filter down everywhere. So you have to get them on board one way or another. And the way I would do that, if I had a CEO, very top of the top, that was very negative, you know what I would do? I would sit down with him, maybe over lunch or a beer, and maybe both, and sit down and do the use case with him. How do I make your life easier? What are you doing from application to application? What are you doing? Let me show you. Let me show you why you should jump into Teams and why it can be better. Give me 30 days to prove to you. It might be a little bit of an undertaking, but that's what I would do. I would sit down with him or her, and I would make it my personal mission to prove to them that that I can make their life better in Teams. Any other questions? We cannot see the link. All right, any other questions? All right. Well, if there are any others, feel free to email me. Otherwise, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.